Well, I try to stay as clear and objective when I do reviews, but I am so happy to hear this new song, Cinderella Story by ALiA. And to review it, we're really going to have to break down one of the things that I would maybe describe as the ALiA problem that sometimes comes up in their songwriting, as well as talking about why this song is so great. But that's what we're going to get into today. We haven't done an ALiA review in quite a while, I think over a year. Let's talk about this song, Cinderella Story, because it sorely needs to be talked about. There is a lot to unpack here. Let's go. So to break down this song, let's first of all start by talking about what I previously mentioned as being something of the ALiA problem that had come up in their songwriting over the last couple of years, and really was why we hadn't talked about them much on this channel, before explaining why the song is such a welcome return. See, when they first came on my radar, I absolutely fell in love with ALiA, and the big reason was because so much about it just worked. You had a lead singer who had a powerful voice but also a sense of fun, a real energy. You had a keyboard player. I say every band needs a keyboard player because they can literally play any sound. It's the most useful musician to have. They had a violinist. What a fantastic thing. Again, another out there tone that doesn't come up in most bands, and yet to contrast the keyboard player, this is a very sort of tangible sounding instrument. It's an instrument that has a real sort of, well, it's the opposite of digital, to be completely fair. It's the most analog sounding instrument you can imagine. This was a band who had so much going for them, and they really used it. They had songs that were darker, things like I, and songs which were a bit sort of heavy but hopeful, like Impulse, and you had songs like Utopia, which were just filled with joy. They were a group who were really taking advantage of all of it, and as I pointed out as well, had a wicked ability to do brilliant bridges. In our end of year awards on this channel, 2 years running, I gave the best bridge of the year award, yes, bridges make or break songs, to ALiA. They just were doing fantastic. See, the problem is though, is when you have that kind of range and you have that many sounds and you have that ability to do big performing songs, you kind of really do need to, unfortunately, stay on the focus of doing songs that are either very dramatic or very theatrical. Your songs, if you're going to have all those sounds in them, need to be very happy or very sad or very angry or very hopeful. And there had become this phase where ALiA had slipped into doing songs that were a little bit more middle of the road, and it was just not really taking advantage of any of their sounds. And pairing this up with the fact that ALiA, one of their songwriting things, they do tend to stick to very similar sort of scales for the melodies, fairly similar rhythms, there are similar chord patterns, they do definitely have a very recognizable sound to the way that the notes are structured and put together. Having a very different tone and a very different sound to the actual, you know, the instruments and the mood is kind of the most useful way to keep the variation in your sound when the songwriting is very much of a sort of a set group of sort of techniques and writing philosophies that they take from. Yeah, as I say, a lot of the same scales and chord patterns do come up quite a lot. So it just kind of entered this area where their songs were starting to feel a little bit samey, a little bit underwhelming. And I actually did do a video, I recorded a video at one point where I was going to talk about that, but I ended up not posting it just because I felt kind of bad about it. I was like, they're not doing anything wrong, they're just not really wowing me anymore. And that brings us to this new song, Cinderella Story. Now, I would completely accept anyone who said, but wait a second, Howard, Cinderella Story is immediately, obviously, them doing lots of things they've done before. I know, again, songwriting style, it's all fairly, we've seen it before. The bridge, the way that it does all the things that I had previously given them awards for, you know, the big bridge with the emotion and it breaks down to the choral vocals. Yeah, we've all heard this before. The thing is that I can't help but love it as someone who really wants this band to do well for the fact that it leans into everything I want from them. It is really, really emotionally impactful. The chorus is properly catchy. That's great. The bridge, yeah, we've heard them do it before. Doesn't make it any worse. I mean, it's not like an obvious copy-paste of another bridge they've done before. There are, after all, the same way you can say a band often takes from a similar style of writing between their songs. Yeah, you can go too far that way, but then again, you can't completely reinvent the wheel with every song you do. this to me is that nice balance where yes, it is recognisably ALiA, and yet at the same time it is so gleefully playing with the things that they're so good at and using them in a way that is identifiably different enough that this song is not just going to be one where you go, oh, I'd listen to it or I'd listen to this and they'd both be the same. I mean, it has the sort of intensity and hopefulness of Impulse, but it's not quite as angry as Impulse. It has a lot of the sounds of sort of the big, jubilant, grand sounds of Utopia, but it's not quite so, shall we say, gleeful. This has a little bit more depth to it, I feel. It has a bit more of a journey here. You have a bit more brooding in the verses before those big sort of anthemic choruses. Yes, it is something that's very hard to quantify exactly what makes this song okay, considering the things I've said before, and yet I can't help but feel that the biggest one is just because of the fact that they really feel like they're going all out here. They feel like they've lent into it, they've targeted what the mood is, and they've just gone for it. It is explosive in the choruses, dramatic in the bridge, and it has that sort of brooding emotion in the verse. It just works. It knows what it's doing and it delivers it, and it utilizes all of those sounds and qualities that I previously mentioned the lineup of ALiA have on tap. You know, it's what they have to use and they're using it, and for me it's fantastic. I must also give a little bit of credit as well to the music video. ALiA are one of those bands who, I must say, I think they just kind of look good on camera. You've got a mixture of the lead singer and the drummer who both just carry so much expression on their faces and move dynamically. Obviously, even the drummer, he's on the seat and he just has a whole movement where he looks really engaging. Lead singer, sorry, I never remember names, I'm really bad at that. She's just wonderful. The way she bounces around in the videos, she just really encapsulates the emotion of the song and delivers it visually as well as audibly. And then the other members of the band who are maybe not quite as flamboyant, they kind of have the cool thing going on. You know, they know how to pose, they know how to look and do their hair. So, you know, they look good, and again, this is another really well-directed video. I think ALiA, as much as it's nice to see them do different types of music videos, they are one of those bands who are just, like I say, they're good on camera. So these performance-based ones I really like. It was well cut, there was some nice movement around it, it just looked good. So high production value has always been an interesting thing with ALiA, because I must admit, I'm looking here, they got 250,000 subs. However, I never thought of them as being like the biggest band, you know, and yet at the same time there's always high production. You know, their videos look expensive, the songs are beautifully produced, have beautiful quality to the production. You can tell that with all the sounds they've got, they never sound muddy, they sound clear and bright. So yeah, ALiA, again, just really sort of rocking home with some great production and great videos here, which, again, helps get the most out of everything. I just feel, again, they're getting the most out of everything. Just before I give my conclusion, I've got to show you this. This just came up on my phone. Your comment got a heart from ALiA Official, because I left them a comment where I literally said, what was it? I said, I'm so glad to hear this song really brings back the best of ALiA. That's what I said, and that was my conclusion in the comments of the video, and that's pretty much my conclusion here. I loved this. I thought it was great. Now, I'm fully willing to accept that because it brings us some of those ALiA traits that are so familiar to the band, if you're not already an ALiA fan, I don't see this selling them to you. I really don't. I would still recommend you listen to it, especially if you haven't really heard the band or you're not familiar with them. I think this is one of the best songs they've done today, even if it does draw from things they've done before. It's really them building on their sound. If you are an ALiA fan, though, I cannot see any way you're not going to adore this. It's just, I love it. It's brilliant. I listened to this when it premiered with just a big, stupid grin on my face. And I loved it, and I think if you're going to love it or hate it, this is great. It's such a useful review. You're going to love it or you're going to hate it. But if you love it, I think you're going to really love it. So there you go. This is the latest song, Cinderella Story by ALiA. It's brilliant. Go check it out. Leave your comments below. Tell me what you think. And until I hopefully see you very soon in Japan for the next one of these, for now. Ciao, ciao.